Hey there, you found the Dirt Road Tourist. I'm Ken, your host, and today is the start of a new year and a whole new season, Season 3. Today I want to talk about rumors that overlanding is dead. It hit its peak popularity and people are moving on to the next big Instagram fad. I've heard that. Heck, we've all heard some variation on it the past few years. And yet, here we are. So what does 2026 have in store for the world of overlanding? Well, you'll just have to stick around. Roll that intro. Hello and welcome. My wife Susan and I, we're on a mission to explore the byways of this country to find the food, the people, and even the odd stuff. We're exploring where the roads lead after you leave the interstates behind, and beyond where the roads end. Whether you're thinking about getting started overlanding or rocking a fully built rig, I'll be talking about the places we go and giving tips to make your journeys go smoother. And it all starts now on this episode of the Dirt Road Tourist. Is overlanding dying out? Well, some will tell you that it's alive and well and still growing, and some predict that it's a fad that's on its way out. I think a big part of what side of the fence people are on has a lot to do with what they wish it would be. It's true that overlanding, particularly the off-road part of it, has been a bit of a victim of its own popularity since the pandemic. There are legitimate questions about just how many people we can put out into some of the trails that we love going through and some of our most fragile ecosystems and, have it be sustainable. We've seen many of our most popular trails around the country be closed off to off-road recreation due to erosion and excessive environmental impacts the past few years. A lot of these are the result of a few bad actors not following proper trail etiquette and tread lightly principles, but even when everyone follows the rules, the more people who drive over these trails, the more the impact. And these are totally legit concerns. So, is overlanding fading in the public perception, or is it poised to become even more popular than ever? To shed light on that question, we can turn to trend predictions within the travel industry. These polls and trends are used throughout the travel industry by everyone from travel agencies, cruise lines, major hotel chains to create their business strategies for the coming year. Whether the 2026 trends are good news or bad news is a matter of perspective. It also depends on what you consider overlanding. That said, we'll look into the numbers and I'll get into that in a minute. Susan and I have been on several cruises together. Some of our favorite excursions tend to be those hop-on, hop-off bus tours in port stops where they're available. If you're not familiar with them, they consist of a series of buses that run a route around a port city, kind of a circular route with regular stops. At any given stop, there is going to be one of the buses that comes along every 15 minutes or so. These give you the freedom to explore a place however you choose. While the crowds are going in one direction to grab a selfie at one of the major landmarks, you can hop off the bus and say, hey, let's go this way, and see what you can find in another direction. We like the little unexpected stores and cafes that we stumble across on these explorations. When you're done exploring one particular area, you head back to the nearest stop and you hop on the next bus that comes along, off to check out another part of the city or island. Rather than being herded around on a one-size-fits-all experience, you get to pick your own adventure, explore the way you want, and more often than not, you end up finding stuff that you never expected going into the excursion. But it's the freedom to go off and explore your own way, to interact with a place on your terms and timeline, to linger over that especially great cup of coffee, or, to pause an extra half hour just listening to the story from some interesting local that you bumped into that appeals to us. The things that we didn't set out to find is often the stuff that we end up talking about years after the trip. Back when I created Dirt Road Tourist the first time, I had to pick a podcast category to list it under. I chose places and travel, in part because Spotify doesn't even have a category for overlanding. And seriously, Spotify? But also because that's how I think of and approach overlanding, as the ultimate hop-on, hop-off form of travel. Depending on how terrain capable your vehicle build is, you can explore just about anywhere you choose. I tend to approach most of my podcasts from the viewpoint of people who already overland. That's my primary audience, after all. But if you found this show looking for a travel podcast, well, it absolutely is. If you're accustomed to seeking out content with tips about train travel or navigating airports, why would you want to stop and listen to a podcast about overlanding? Isn't that just guys driving jacked up trucks through 6-foot deep trenches and climbing cliffs with a Jeep in the desert? Well, sure. I mean, there's always overlanders who are constantly pushing the envelope of how far out there they can get. They're seeking experiences that they can only get by finding places that are further out into nature. But if you had a way to go to a destination and go wherever you choose, seek out whatever you find interesting, and to not be dependent upon whether you can find a hotel room, to not be on any kind of timeline other than your own, where would you go? If you're a Civil War buff, maybe it would be to hit all the smaller and lesser known battlefields that are out there. Or you might seek out those perfect river runs through it trout waters. Are you a Lewis and Clark fan? Hey, a YouTube channel called Venture to Rome did a whole series where they traced the path of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and the footage is absolutely spectacular. If you want to see what overlanding can look like, check out those videos. Maybe you would check out wineries, research every brewery in your state, plot out a barbecue trail. Overlanding is about whatever kind of journey you want to take. Where you go is limited by your imagination and the capability of the vehicle you travel in. When your carefully planned trip itinerary gets completely upended after sitting at the turnoff of a gravel road and asking, hey, I wonder where that leads to, that's when you're off on an adventure, and that's when you're overlanding. So how about those numbers and trends for 2026, and how do they tie into the appeal of overlanding? Well, this podcast idea started as a blurb I saw on my Facebook feed, and I thought it was interesting, so I did a Google search for a few articles, and this is the authoritative and highly scientific results I came up with. Let's dive in. One of the first trends for the upcoming year, you may have noticed that the price of everything seems to be just, a little bit higher of late. Yeah, according to mylighthouse.com, these financial pressures are already impacting travel demand, and they're also shaping traveler behavior. They go on to point out that consumers remain highly motivated to travel, but they are becoming more cautious. Affordability concerns and over-tourism pressures are pushing them to search for value across a wider mix of destinations and alternative travel windows. They go on to point out that politics are also going to impact travelers' budgets more in 2026, with rising tourist taxes, particularly in the more popular destinations. On top of that, the article points out a decline in vacation rental listings, or at least a decline in growth of them, is putting some upward pressure on the cost of rentals. Of course, overlanding comes with its own laundry list of costs, and many of the gear costs have seen price tag hikes since tariffs went into place. But you don't worry about the cost of lodging and rentals when you travel with your bed, your kitchen, and all your necessities on board the vehicle. So one of the articles the BBC put out says that one trend is set to dominate next year: quietcations, also called hushpitality. I like that one, hushpitality. This movement centers on comfort, silence, and finding a way to escape the compounding stresses of modern life. With our always-on digital culture colliding with an endless roll call of global events reaching us in real time, it's no surprise that many of us are looking to be disconnected. The article goes on to point out that travelers are turning away from overcrowded, overhyped Instagram destinations that rarely live up to the hype. They point out that off-grid destinations are on the rise. CNBC reports that 2/3 of U.S. travelers are under the age of 35, and they say that they prefer active trips that involve hiking, rafting, and cycling. Much of what us overlanders already do matches the description of the kind of trips that travelers are going to be looking to take this year. If all of these travelers aren't planning on overlanding per se, it looks like they're going to be flocking to the kinds of places that we also like to visit. And they're going to be increasingly choosing to get there by car, it appears. Hilton, of the Hilton hotel chain fame, announced in their 2026 Trends report that growing numbers of travelers are choosing ground travel as their mode of transportation, favoring journeys that keep them connected to the landscape. And for many, an appreciation of nature is key. Hilton notes that the hashtag road trip has racked up more than 5.9 million tags globally as travelers rediscover the appeal of the open road. Among the statistics that they cite, 71% of Americans plan to drive on their next vacation. 76% of global car travelers say that they favor road trips over flying because it allows for more spontaneity, helping give people the power to go where they want, when they want. Milena Nikolova, Chief Behavior Officer at Behavior Smart, which specializes in understanding how and why we travel, sees this road trip boom as kind of having a distinctly U.S. flavor. So we have a growing desire to unplug on vacation and a renaissance of the great American road trip. The BBC article pointed out that a backlash against one-size-fits-all travel and tour bookings is happening. They point out that the travel industry is moving towards hyper-individuality on a grand scale. A trends report from the travel PR firm Lemongrass notes that curated escapes reflect a rising decision fatigue and cognitive overload of making constant micro-decisions. Things like, on this tour, do we choose to go see the Louvre or do we go see the Eiffel Tower? Do we do scuba diving or horseback riding? It's stuff like that people are just getting tired of on their vacations. So this is happening both at home and abroad. They're also prioritizing personal experiences. 72% of respondents to a My Lighthouse poll report that they want to go on a vacation to explore a personal passion, a skill, or hobby. They go on to conclude that travelers are seeking a sweet spot, destinations that offer adventure and cultural depth, but remain affordable and free of the overcrowding associated with traditional favorites. So, my fellow overlanding friends, does any of this sound familiar? Okay, so I'm done spitting facts and figures at you. I don't claim to be some travel trend expert, and I can't say that these trends directly lead to an upswing in interest in overlanding. There is just as much reason for the RV industry to read these reports with hope, but these all come from trend reports that are used by the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry to plan their yearly strategies. And all of these trends point to there being a traveling public with interests that align more closely than ever with what we all know and think of as overlanding. The kind of travel and the kinds of trips that we take, well, those are the kinds of experiences that people are looking for as well. So anyway, count me in the camp who thinks that overlanding still has room to run in 2026. Heck, even if it weren't for all of these trend reports, the year-over-year growth I see in attendance at overlanding events around the country lead me to think that there's room for overlanding to grow. So it's a brand new year, and it's that time when all our thoughts turn to resolutions for the coming year. Most of us will think of things like, losing weight or making it to the gym on a regular schedule. I don't have a good track record with those kinds of resolutions. So I want to resolve to be more active as an overlander in 2026. It won't be a difficult resolution to keep because our exploring and camping schedule was heavily impacted in 2025 by some major upgrades to our Tacoma and a lot of forced downtime waiting for the global supply chain to catch up. Lost the best chunk of both the spring and fall seasons waiting on stuff to ship. All that's behind us, and we've got the rig in a place where we just want to use it now, and I'm ready to get out there. I have a number of trips and events already planned, so here's how 2026 is shaping up so far. First up, and just around the corner, coming up fast, is the Southeast Overland Camping event in Petros, Tennessee. That event takes place at the historic Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. And if an overlanding event at a prison sounds weird, it's not an active prison to start with. It's now a museum, and it's famous for being the lockup that housed James Earl Ray. The prison tour is actually kind of cool and filled with exhibits of artifacts from its time, as well as one of Tennessee's most notorious prisons. The structure dates all the way back to the 1800s, and it's an impressive piece of architecture in a scared straight sort of way. But more than that, it hangs right off the backside of Windrock Park, which is one of the Southeast's premier off-road adventures. It also is a 30-minute drive away from Catoosa Wildlife Management Area and Nemo, which is where I plan to do some trail riding during the event this year. It's become one of the biggest overlanding events of the year in the Southeast. Only Expo East beats it out, if I'm not mistaken. Tickets are getting ready to go on sale this month, so don't sleep on this one. After that, we're going to be taking the rig down to the Panhandle of Florida in April, and we're planning to do the Georgia Traverse in May. I haven't gotten anything nailed down for June yet, but I'm still keeping my eye on the Overland Adventure Summit in southern Kentucky. They held their inaugural event in 2024, and it looked like a lot of fun. I had hoped to go last year, but it just kind of never materialized. But the website's still up, so hey, maybe they'll take another swing at it this year. We've got our annual Labor Day week trip planned for the Northeast BDR. That's the backcountry discovery route for those unfamiliar with it. And after our main trip the year before last, I'm psyched to get back to that part of the country again, particularly in early September. October brings around the annual rooftop tent rally at the James River State Park in Virginia, another one of my favorite events, and there are going to be all of the weekend trips, camps, and tomfoolery in between all those. I also plan to participate in the Venture Unknown Foundation's cleanup event this year. Again, it's one of those events that can always use more help, and the work they do is badly needed out there. I found that out by attending this last one. And with talking about the Venture Unknown cleanup event, that brings me back around to the topic of New Year's resolutions. Tread Lightly is a community of off-roaders committed to keeping trails open, clean, and rideable for future generations. They do this primarily through community education efforts like their Tread Lightly certification. It's an online education in the Tread Lightly principles with a short test, and you get a nifty certificate at the end of it. The certification is free, the education is priceless, and the whole thing takes about 30 minutes of your time. It's also not just about not being a litter bug out there. The Tread Lightly principles are also about trail etiquette and off-roading safely, both for yourself and for others. So here's an easy resolution to keep. Head on over to treadlightly.org and take their certification course. Again, it's free, and it only takes a little time to complete, but it may just change up a couple of bad habits on outdoor trails that you didn't even know you have, and help keep our favorite places from being closed down. If you want to keep a New Year's resolution that will make a difference, that's one you can check off your list today. I'll even throw a link to Tread Lightly into the show notes. You'll find it there, so go look for that after the show. Once you've got your Tread Lightly certificate, you want to bump that resolution up a notch? Resolve to talk about it. That's what the whole Tread Lightly thing is designed to do. Raise awareness. Resolution or not, that's what I hope you do with it. It's like doing what I'm doing here right now. Find 3 people and send them over to get educated. 3 people who haven't heard about Tread Lightly org yet. You've got until December, but that's how you keep a resolution that stands a fighting chance of making a real difference in our outdoor spaces. Exponential numbers, all that kind of stuff. The one step between changing yourself and changing the world is to just talk about it. That's how stuff gets done. You can probably manage to steer 3 people to the website in one night of swapping stories over a campfire. Anyway, that's my resolution for the year. Find 3 people I can help get Tread Lightly certified. And I'm starting right here on this episode of my podcast. I like resolutions that I'm liable to keep, and this one doesn't seem all that hard. Heck, I just keep talking about it, and I will be talking about it more here as the year goes on. But if I don't manage to hit 185 pounds by the end of the year, I won't have to feel like I haven't kept my resolution. Head on over to the show notes and look for the link there. You'll also find a link on my website, www.dirtroadtourist.com. There you'll find my blog, links to all my socials, a link to join the Dirt Road Tourist Facebook group, and a contact page to leave a message for yours truly. Head on over and follow us on our socials. While you're at it, hit like and subscribe on the podcast. You're here already, for crying out loud. Leave a review and a comment. Think of it as the first step in keeping your New Year's resolution. It'll definitely be a first step in me keeping mine. So give Dirt Road Tourist a subscribe and a review. Seriously, thank you so much if you do. You already have my thanks if you're still listening to the episode. I've been playing around with Suno AI, a music site, to generate original music for the podcast and my YouTube stuff. You've been hearing some of it in the background during the podcast. So stick around and listen to the closing song on this episode. It's coming right up. Let me know what you think about it, the new tunes there. Also, keep an eye out on the website for the Southeast Overland camping event. Tickets are getting ready to drop any time now. I'll throw a link for that in the show notes as well while I'm at it. Hope to run into some of y'all there. In the meantime, have a great week and go see something amazing.
That's right. I'm a dirt road